I'm Claire. I'm going to be talking about the effects of data breach on retail industries. All right, let's get started. Now, the first objective of this presentation is to present effects of the data breach. As it's, at the same time, we're going to analyze those effects and how they affect the companies, the retail companies, and their customers. At the end of this presentation, we're going to conclude with some practical suggestion based on the analysis of what we have discussed. All right, so what do we know? Now, the first thing we know is that even though there is a decrease in the number of data breaches, there is actually an increase of the number in the number of total number of identities exposed. Now, one of the highest or the most affected industries is the retail industry. As a matter of fact, a fourth of the total security breaches occurred within the retail industry. Okay. Now, according to the Symantec report of 2017, on average, there is about 927,000 identities exposed per breach. As of September of 2017, there is about 1.1 billion identities in total left unprotected due to data breach. Right? Now, the methodology that I have that I did for this term paper is that I did identify the retail companies that have been victimized by data breach. At the same time, I did further investigation on the companies and their customers' behaviors based on published and research-based articles and journals, right? Now, limitation. I would like to caution you that on this paper, I did not complete any independent study. Information that will be included in this presentation are just mostly based on papers published online or published in print. Any assumptions that I do make in this presentation is solely based on the analysis of my reference materials, which I'm going to show you at the end of this presentation. Now, although most, if not all, of retail companies engage in e-commerce, the primary focus of this presentation are the data breach that have stemmed from in-store to include their store databases and point of sale. All right, now retail companies. The first one I want to talk about is the ones that happened in TJ Maxx in December of 2006. So the data breach exposed about 94 million identities, 94 million credit cards, I mean. Now the ringleader of that breach has actually been caught and has spent some jail time. Now, what happened was that this breach cost the company about 200 million in total losses. The next one I want to talk about was in April of 2011 when 77 million of PlayStation accounts were breached. Now, out of those 77 million, there were about 22 million contained unencrypted credit card information. Now, in 2014, Sony settled the class action due to the breach for about 15 million. Okay. Now, the next one is one of the biggest breach and one of the most popular that a lot of people know was the Target breach. This caused the resignation of their CIO. Now, it was reported that the breach actually stemmed from their third-party HVAC contractors and had reached the company's point of sale, which has started pretty early around Thanksgiving of 2016. So there are a lot of people who are actually victims because around that time you have the Black Friday, people had shopping and everything like that. Now, there were about 110 million affected customers due to this data breach. The next one is the attack in 2017 on Home Depot's point of sale. All right. So it was what happened was there was a malware. Their point of sale was infected by some type of malware. Now, in this data breach, there were about 40 million people whose credit card information were stolen. Now, Home Depot had agreed to pay about 13 million for liabilities incurred due to the breach, and about $6.5 million for identity theft protection. The last one is the most recent one in September of 2017. Whole Foods Market, which is mostly an organic store, had reported that some of the customers' payment information from the restaurant part of their company had been breached. So, okay. Now, based on those, a lot of court cases and litigation have occurred. One of the most popular one is the Sovereign Bank versus BJ's Wholesale Club. So on January 10 of 2005, the bank sued BJ's Wholesale and Fifth Third Bank, the merchant acquiring bank for BJ's Wholesale, in state court because of negligence, breach of contract, and equitable indemnification. I'll say that again. All right, now out of the defendants removed the case to the case actually moved to federal court on this one. Okay, the next one was the Ruiz versus Gap Incorporated. There were about 2 laptops that were stolen within a company containing about 800,000 job applications, and so one of the victims or whose identity was exposed was Ruiz, and Ruiz sued a company for a lot of things, unfair competition law, negligence, bailment, violation of California's unfair competition law. But the judgment was it was told that the plaintiff lacked standing and failed to state a claim. All right, so Ruiz was not successful on that end. Another one were the Target court cases. There were a lot of them, but the takeaway in that is that there's a lot of numerous frivolous cases that stem from the Target incident. At the same time, it incurred the company a lot of unnecessary legal costs. A lot of it was nominal, but what really is more expensive are the legal fees. Now, there was a lot to resolve, or they called the problem of opportunism. And then, of course, the misuse comes in the form of non-meritorious claims filed merely to cash in on a quick settlement known as strike suits. All right? Okay. I hope you all don't have questions, or if you do, just leave a comment. All right. Next, the main observed consequence of the data breach. The basic analysis on this one is that my takeaway is that the main observed consequence of data breach on retail company is the loss of money. Of course, once you have the data breach, automatically there is a loss of money for the company, not just because basically there's a lot of settlements that the company needs to pay, settlements to their companies, payments to any liabilities incurred because of the data breach. At the same time, a lot of the companies do opt to pay for identity monitoring agency. Now, in most cases, companies who has a lot of bigger data breach, their leadership tends to step down. Data breach also causes negative customer relationship. There is a risk for customers. There is actually increased risk for identity theft because having their identity exposed. Of course, there is a increased number of litigation court cases, as we have already seen. There are quite a few. A lot of them might be frivolous, but a lot of them do tend to settle. There's also, again, increase of frivolous case or claims. Now, in conclusion, I do say that retail industry has been one of the most targeted industries by cyber criminals. Okay, the result of the data breach is both devastating for the company and, of course, the customer. Retail companies need to be more vigilant in um, preventing this and being a victim to data breach. However, I must point out that sometimes, despite best efforts, due to cyber criminals' increasing skills and relentlessness, a data breach can happen despite strict measures in place. So, we companies need to be aware of that and need to make sure that such incidents like this, the data breach that has been happening, are included in their business intelligence analysis and plan ahead if some things like this happen. Um, and if it does happen, then the company would have to quickly mitigate any repercussions brought about by these crimes. Now, lastly, retail companies also need to invest to further establish customer intimacy in order to mitigate negative customer relationship. Okay, so that's it. And the next part are just my references. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, or if you just have any other concerns about this presentation, feel free to comment. But I am